So let's talk about service agreements. And first, I want to talk about the intent of what an agreement does for your company. And if you think about it, it's really a great way to capture a customer and to retain that customer. And it's also a great way to feed the service department with a customer base. And the service department becomes nothing more than customer service. And it's up to the service team to take care of customers and to retain them because the opportunity that comes from the service team is the best kind of opportunity. And how you use service agreements or how you set them up is going to vary from company to company. You may have a dedicated sales effort to set these up, and who sells these to your customers may change as well. I see a lot of companies have their service guys sell these. I see uh, salesmen sell these. I see owners sell these. So think about how this would apply to your company. But the way we recommend to set these up is that they're a single page contract and it's focused on a one call close. If you go in there with a 10-page document about your service program, it's much harder to get the close within that type of environment. Now, obviously, if you're setting up, a 100 building portfolio on one agreement, that's going to be a little bit different than one or two buildings at a time. But if you take a look at what I have on my screen here, it's a dedicated service agreement, and this is our standard template. It's a one-page document. It's a never-ending contract. Cancel anytime. If you walk into a building and you try to shake hands with the plant manager, you might take them through this single page document and maybe even a set of brochures, or you got a nice folder, whatever your presentation is. You offer two different types of programs, which one's reactive. And that means that, look, Mr. Customer, if you have a leak, use us. We have a 30-minute call response time, and we target to come out here within 24 hours. You can change that a little bit, but you're committing to a reactive service. 24/7 leak response. You may even give them a login to your client portal to push that button. With the proactive, meaning you're coming out there a couple times a year, you're inspecting the roof, you're periodically updating the inspection report and delivering that report to the customer. And you can give them 10% off roof repairs, and really you're going to mark that up another 10%, that's fine. But the first visit's free. And a lot of you do these free inspections, but if you give them away within your agreement, then it becomes a way to keep coming out there. So the first inspection's free, cancel anytime. We're not going to bill you for 3 months if that's a quarterly agreement. And the frequency is going to change depending on how big the building is or how old it is and things like that. We have a few fields on the right here for you to fill out, whether it's reactive or it's proactive. Obviously, you're always going for the proactive because you're going to expect $4,000 to $6,000 in upsells each and every year from that proactive agreement. And that's a system average. Some get more, some get less. And it all depends on how you do those reports. It all depends on how well you fill them out and how well you price them. So with proactive, you're coming out, you're cleaning the drains, you're inspecting the roof, and you're somehow delivering that inspection report to a decision maker. And if you don't deliver it, you're not going to see any upsells. So doing the inspection versus getting it into the right person's hands is another story. So on the right there, we have properties, frequency, cost per visit, and annual cost. I see variations on how people use those, but if you take that template I sent out, you can tweak it within Word, save it as a PDF, and use it. So you fill out the client information, put your company name or your branded service solution in here, and feel free to run with this. But once again, you never want to leave without one or two of these options. So you might go in for proactive and they might not want that, but don't leave without getting a reactive customer. It's still better than not having one. And we recommend to have this reactive option in there to have a very easy way to just still keep a customer off the street. And that's what this is about keeping a customer off the street. Okay, question. Is $500 a standard rate per visit after the first? And I would say it is if the building's bigger, because really you're selling time. You're selling a couple hours of time. It should take you 2 hours to do the inspection and shake the hand of the plant manager and do some of the light repairs. You're going to show up, you're going to go in, introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm here to do the RTM, go up on the roof, clean the drains, take some pictures, update the inspection report. After you do the first inspection report, it's all populated. So it's very easy to keep it going. You go out there, you might change out a few pictures. If any of the repairs have been done since the last time, they come off the report. But 500, I'd say, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty standard rate for a larger building. Very commonly, I see 250 for a quarterly type visit. 500 for biannual would be a good measuring stick. Again, a couple hours of time is really what you're trying to sell. Okay, you are welcome. Okay, yep. And again, you can get this in the handout section. So on your panel, the go-to meeting panel, there's a spot that says handouts, and I've attached the service agreement Word document so you can tweak this to fit your company. And I've seen some great presentation materials out there too, where they got a large folder, and on the folder you have your company image, you have maybe a few projects that you've done. Inside the folder, you have some other reference material, and then you have this single page RTM agreement inside of the folder. I think that goes really well because it's a leave behind. You leave it on their desk, and they continue to look at it even after you've signed them up. And I've seen a lot of other variations too with the client portal and what you offer within that. You might offer, hey, with Reacted, click the button. If you got a leak, click this button. You might even put the app on their phone. With Proactive, you might say, hey, you have electronic billing options, you have capital reporting, you have leak history and all of that within the client portal. So think about what your offering is. I'm going to show you how to set these up. And I'll tell you, we've spent a lot of time trying to put a module in place to allow for you to track your agreements, track when the next inspection date is, and track how to sign these up. So we'll show you first the desktop side, and then we'll also go into the mobile side. We have a very slick way to sell these on site, and using your phone, you'll literally be able to take a picture of the contract and upload it into the system so that way the service department can schedule it out. And what we're looking at here is the RTM report. And those of you that have seen the early version of this are seeing that it has come a long way. And what this is a list of agreements that I have in my system, and I can see the start date of when I originally sold it. I can see the next inspection date, which automatically calculates based upon frequency. I can see the cost, so I can pay more attention to certain clients if I need to. And I see the square footage. Just like I showed you on the actual contract, we have proactive, we have reactive. Proactive is a field and reactive is a field, and we'll talk more about that in a second. Quick question, how do I get the RTM report? And that's a good question. If you don't have it, you need to turn it on for yourself, which you can do through Toolbox, through admin, and then inside of the user administration, turn on the report. If you don't see it in there, then you don't have it turned on. You need to call one of us to turn it on for you. Okay. The intent of this report is that you come to it and you can see what's coming up. You can check off what's going to be scheduled and you send it to the power board. Think of RTMs as a way to fill out a serviceman's schedule, right? You fill in the slots. You don't have leaks all the time. You don't have repair work all the time. but RTMs are a great way to keep your service guys busy and keep sales coming in the door. So let me go to a property and I'll show you how these things get set up. And I'll just come down to any one of these buildings. Capitol Park Plaza. This is the way the office would set up these RTMs, which again, there's a mobile way to do it, and that's intended for a salesperson to be able to upload these right into the system from their phone. We have a service tab, and inside of the service tab, there's RTM. As you look at these fields, you'll see that we can assign an RTM to a section, which if the building's really big, you might offer RTMs section specific, or if it covers it all. The status is either active or inactive, which if they cancel for some reason, you can flip it to inactive. So that way you don't have to delete it from your system. The cost per visit, so we might have a $250 quarterly visit. The field versus, we have proactive, reactive. Reactive is like I showed you on the agreement where they use us for leaks. Proactive means we're coming out. So keep an eye on that field there. Frequency, we'll set the next service inspection date. So if I select quarterly and I say it started last month, it's going to tell me that the next date is a quarter away. After this highlights in green, we're allowed to create our agreement, meaning we've filled out all the necessary fields. But we still have some notes fields, RTM notes. That might be, hey, make sure they always check in with the plant manager before going up. You might have internal notes on ways in which you need to take care of it internally. And then also invoice notes. You may have to bill it to someone else, or you may have to line out the invoice a certain way. Invoice notes shows up on the dispatch invoice page, just like the invoice notes do for regular dispatches. So RTM notes show up on your report. Use this in a way where if you're looking at a report, it can help. RTM notes. And then upload agreement is if you have a copy of the agreement, you can upload it. This will accept pictures. This will accept PDFs. So don't try and upload a Word document. It's not going to be viewed. And then hit create agreement. So that created an agreement and it gave it a number. It's just self-assigned number. So don't worry about that number. But that's how you put it into the system. And then really, whenever you come to the service tab, you can look at that RTM agreement. And each one will be listed in this dropdown. So you might have multiple for a property. That's okay. It also gets stored within the cloud on the property. This is becoming more of a way to share files, store files, and attach them to each work order as you create dispatches in the system. There's a question here where if a customer wants both proactive and reactive, do we set up two agreements? Really, I would just set that up as just proactive, because even with proactive, you're assuming that they're going to use you for leaks too. And with, the way you sell it too is like reactive is included with proactive. You get both services if you get proactive. So that's how I would set that up, unless you're offering something different with each of those. So now if I go back to my RTM report, RTM agreements inside of Toolbox, we'll see Capitol Park Plaza is now in here, and it's got a next inspection date of 7/1, $250 a visit. Here's the square footage. Here's the notes. And we even include a link to see the agreement. So if you have different structured agreements, you can view them right from this report. There's also invoice ID. And bear in mind, this is a demo account, so it's not entirely accurate. We have invoice IDs that show up, meaning they're in progress right now. They're also color coded. So orange is assigned in arrival ETA, and then yellow is in progress. But if there's an invoice ID, that means you don't want to dispatch it out again. But the way you dispatch them out is you can select them and then send it to the power board. And I mentioned earlier that these are a great way to fill the gaps on your service guy's schedule. So imagine you got a whole month's worth of RTMs or even a whole week's worth. You send it to the power board, and depending on the schedule, I got a pretty bare looking schedule, you could pass these out. All of the RTMs are color coded with R. So I'll assign myself one, and I'll show you what the walkthrough is. I'll give it to Mike down here. Click it again, and you can indicate a time. And you can just keep passing them out. And you don't have to put a time in. It's really up to the service guy depending on their schedule, because they're always going to do the RTMs last in between lead calls. My mobile. And I'm going to do this from my computer today just because it's easier on this webinar. But right when I get into my mobile, you'll see that these are tracked no different than dispatches. And before I hop onto my schedule, let me show you how a salesperson can use their mobile device to sell these agreements, which right after you walk away from your customer, you go back to your vehicle, you can take a picture of it right there and then get rid of the paperwork. On every property, even within mobile, you'll see that this file cabinet exists for users that are not restricted to only access the mobile apps. You have to have the CRM access, and you'll have this file cabinet. So you want to set your salesman up to have that ability. But inside the file cabinet, this is where you see different pieces like sections, activities, opportunities, the fields that we have within the desktop version. And if I go down to RTM, this is where a salesperson can add in a new one. So if I hit plus here, same fields within the desktop. Choose the frequency, cost per visit, labor rate, which is an extra field. You don't have to fill that out, but if the labor rate's any different than your standard labor rate. The start date, and the next service date. Here's my RTM notes, internal notes, invoice notes. And then this camera icon is where it would prompt my camera to open, and I would take a picture of it. All right, so I have one on my desktop. And that's why it accepts both pictures and PDFs. And once again, from a phone, it's going to prompt the camera, and then you'll see it kind of drop right in here. And just scroll back up and save that change, and that's really all you got to do to put it in through mobile. All right, but let's say that I'm going to do my service inspection. The way the system's set up is I'll come and retrieve my agenda through the service list. So these are all my tickets. I can see I have a T&M and I have an RTM. RTM, rooftop maintenance, I'll click into it, and it'll give me some details here. I didn't really set this up with notes, but notes would show anything relevant to doing the maintenance on this building as long as we entered them in. I didn't really open up the dispatch ticket. It's no different than a regular dispatch ticket. And then what I'll do is I'll start travel, and we're going to track our cost against this RTM2, where every dispatch in FCS is still going to track the time, the labor, and it's still going to treat the gross margin no different than it does on any invoice type. So it's up to you if you want to keep that accurate or not. So I'll punch in for travel. I'm punched into another ticket. That's all right. And I'll drive to this agreement. And once I get there, I'm going to take it and I'll punch in, verify that I'm at the right building. And this looks like it's a past completed inspection report, which is great because, again, it's just about keeping this thing living. Every property has a living inspection report. And when you go do an agreement, you're really updating that report. If some of the repairs have been done, take them off the report. The way the system was intended was that if you do any repairs, you push those repairs from the report to dispatch. You complete them within the system. They come off of the living report so that this always remains current. I know a lot of people go around that, and let's say you sold a bunch of items off your inspection report. They call us and say, how do I, keep this report relevant? Well, you got to dispatch them off of the property and they come off the shelf. So notice that this says verify RTM service. It's a little bit different because it's the combination of an inspection and a service dispatch. So verify section, I'm going to go into this section. I'm going to perform my maintenance. What I almost recommend doing here is that you add in another category for tracking maintenance items, which you might have an RTM category, and it's verbed a little bit differently than the other categories that you have. It's maintenance items. It's here's debris by a drain, and then I clean to remove the debris by the drain. So let's say there's a drain over here and it's just got some debris by it. What I'll come down is to a description that makes the most sense. And I'll just choose other here. I'll type one in, and it's remedial, and there might be two of them. And then I'll say there's debris around the drain, and I'll take a picture of it. There's a picture, and there's debris in the drain. Pretty straightforward. You can do up to 4 pictures for problem, 4 for after. And this is really what the RTM is about, is just documenting the maintenance that you do. If you're caulking anything, if you're filling any pitch pans, if you're cleaning any drains, and then what we did to fix that, or what we did afterward, which is remove the debris. And I'm being pretty light with this. All right, here's another question over here. How do you see the history if they come off of the report? That's a good question. The history remains within the client portal. And I'll show that after I complete this. So that's the first maintenance item I did. I can go around and continue to document that. But this is focused on walking the roof first and just doing the right thing. If there's screws on the roof from another contractor, pick them up and take a couple pictures of that and bring that to the customer. The next step after doing the maintenance items are doing the inspection. So in our notes here, just like a normal dispatch, you can say what you did, basic cleanup, and then send a request. So I'm done with my service part of this dispatch. The next piece is doing the inspection. So verify the section to do my inspection on. This is going to walk through the standard inspection now. All right, section 1. Here's my square footage. Another question here. Is there a maintenance checklist that the tech can follow? Now, how you do that is going to change. I see a lot of people do have these checklists, and you still have to deliver that. You could automate that by attaching it to the dispatch, but really you might just consider having them have a stack of them in their truck so that they can fill them out each visit. There's not a great way to fill that out inside of the system. The checklist hopefully gets automated by filling out the dispatch. I know that everyone has their own way of doing things, and if you can't document it through the course of the dispatch, then you're going to have to give them that paper document. All right, so now I'm just going through the whole inspection, observations, taking pictures of the roof. All right, and then stepping through those screens. So I think we all know what the inspection piece looks like. I'll just cruise over to the end here. Composition, deficiencies, condition. I'm updating the report, and then I get all the way to the end here for recommendations. I have an opportunity to generate this and even review it with the customer if you need to. So I can go back and I can make changes to this. I can add additional sections, or I can complete my RTM. Okay, what if an inspection had been previously done? Do we do a new inspection every time? So this is really important, guys, is that every inspection is living on every property within your system. Every time you go out to see a roof, it's changed from the last time that you were out there. So you update the inspection report. If you're using the system and you sell repairs, the repairs come off of the inspection report. They get placed inside of the history, and it's all viewed from within the client portal. If observation photos change, click into it and replace it with a new updated image if you want to. It's about reviving the reports each time you go out there. At this point, I'm going to complete my RTM, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a second here. I'll go into the client portal. It does give me a chance to generate this and deliver it. And I know in some cases, the inspector, the service guy is the same person who delivers the report. So we're sensitive to that. And if you put the approvals in place, then you can kind of keep people from delivering the report that way. A follow-up question to what I was just asked. Understood, but the drawing and dimensions are the same every time. Can we bypass that part of the process? If you're talking about outlining the roof, then it does have you go through those same screens. You just hit next. So there's not a bypass to that. You're still going through all of the same screens. I think that's what you're asking. Unless you're talking about doing a takeoff, because in takeoff, you're going to do that from the property once you get back to it, which you can do. Your guys can do takeoffs right from the mobile. I think you're talking about is that aerial image screen where you confirm the air, you confirm the building. That's always going to be there. Front of the building, it's always going to be there. Choose the section, and then it confirms the outline. That's always going to be there. You just hit next, next, next. And at this point within the dispatch, your final approval is either I'm going to request final approval because I intend to deliver this report to my customer, or I'm going to skip to review the performed service. If your expectation is that you're going to deliver this to your customer each time, you're going to have to go through the final approval. What you're seeing now, we can just select from any contacts we have within the property or company. So if you want to email this, you'll email it to your customer and then select email. So after you've submitted it, you then have an opportunity to close out with your customer. And this is the whole part of these agreements is that you're staying with the client, and when you show up, you shake their hand. When you leave, you kind of review what you've done while you were there. So the ready to review screen brings you through a nice presentation where you can take your customer through it. Hey, I came out here. This is what we did. Here's a couple of pictures, yada, yada, yada. And then close out like a normal dispatch. Okay, then they would take their finger and they would sign it right here if you guys are following those steps too. Yeah, and this is a really good point here too. Also, the beauty of RTM is, the exhaust repairs that are generated. I don't know if I get that. If the deficiencies are related to the sold PM, preventative maintenance, how do we generate a report that shows preventative maintenance deficiencies already repaired and the new items that are remedial in nature? I think what you're saying is, how do I show what I've done, what I want them to do, and what has been completed during this call, maybe? And I'll show you your options, because really the inspection is like a fact find, and it uncovers the type of opportunity on that building, whether you're going to do these emergency repairs, or we're going to do these remedial repairs, or we're going to have to go down that replacement path. And depending on how your program's structured, you might always recommend that they do the emergency right out of the gate, because that's letting water into the roof system. You might take the remedial and spread that out over the year to get done through the maintenance items. So every time you do an RTM, you might include some of those items. Now, RTM is always going to be a different dispatch than the repairs that you get done. If you sell any of the repairs, there should be a second dispatch that has those repairs on it. So if you sell repairs with your RTM, they should do the RTM in either another dispatch, or they just do an inspection off of the property, and then the one dispatch has the repair items on it. I'm going to skip this screen here, and I'm going to just close out. But here's additional labor, so I might have, it might just be me, but if I did have a helper, I can add in my helper, and then I could put some materials in. Maybe I used a whole tube caulk, and then I'll close that dispatch out. So however you bring this to your customer, the intent is that you're going to sell some repairs. So the different paths in which you can do that, one of which is doing a quick bid. If I go to a property, let's just say I did my RTM on warehouse 28. I know there's deficiencies in there. Let's just say I did an RTM on this property. And I know you guys call them different things, PMs, RTMs. Right when I'm done with the inspection, let's say maybe I am the same guy who reviews it with the customer, and we talked about it and really kind of made sense to do a few repairs. Many different ways in which you can exchange to do those repairs. You can hop into the client portal and you can take them through and do the budget matrix pitch, or you budget the items and you submit the proposal. You can take them through and just generate a quick bid, or you can have a proposal emailed to them at a later time. The easiest way I see is to do a quick bid. And this just takes you through, and I'm not saying you want to do this in front of your customer. This has nothing in it. But you would want to get to the point where you have that proposal screen and then bring it to your customer. So this property definitely has deficiencies. So what do you want to do? Quick bid. And then let's say there's a couple of repairs on section 1 that we just talked about and it made sense to do. Doing a quick bid is the easiest way to get a repair proposal to your customer, whether it's point of sale or it's deliver it and they're going to kick it back to you at a later time. Quick bids are just deficiencies. You still create sections, you still outline the roof, you still measure the roof, but when you get to this screen, it's just add deficiencies. It skips composition, it skips observations, and it's only repairs. So let's say that these 2 items made sense, or maybe all of the emergency items made sense. You can see how it says a date and remedial or emergency and price. All right, so let's say these 3 items we talked about. I'm going to hit next because I'm including these items within my proposal. There are incentives, and that's optional. You don't have to use these, but you can turn them on that offer an incentive to get the deal done. So let's say we're just going to give a 10% discount. This is where you go up to your customer. So imagine you have a tablet or you have a phone and you're taking your customer through this. You're saying, look, these are the repairs we talked about, $100, $250, $400. You can click into it and show them the picture and say, look, this is obviously some, it's got to take this off. Here's a broken skylight. We'll get this fixed for you. And there's some terms that you can review if you want to. And these will just pull from your standard terms and conditions. And it's a way to say that, yes, they were reviewed with your customer. Then you go to pricing. And then this is where we're going to check off the items that we're going to do. I'm being asked if there's a lump sum option. And there is. It's not the original intent of the system. So you'll have to go back and do it another way. But I'll show you lump sum if we have some time here in a couple minutes. This is intended for a la carte. Now, next is going to sell these repairs, therefore create a dispatch, because every time you sell repairs, it will create a dispatch within the system that just needs to be assigned to the person doing the repairs. So you would sign this thing, you would sign this form, your customer would sign that too. Now, if you're not selling it point of sale, you would have not selected any of those deficiencies at the end, and you would have submitted a blank proposal that they can sign back to you. And if you want to send them a lump sum, you would have to go and generate this form from within the client portal with the lump sum option selected. So if you don't want them to see individual pricing, we all have that customer, then we have to go into the client portal, do lump sum before we generate our proposal. And this is really what it looks like. You can preview this right from your phone. And it's got the locations of the repairs. Zoom in a little bit there. So it's a nice proposal, 2 deficiencies per page. It's got the original date too, which is nice, that as your visits span over time, you can see kind of what's older and then what's current. Everything changes, roofs are living. So the inspections reflect that too. So if you have some older repairs, you're able to tell what was original or what was last visit, what was the visit before, and so on. And then this is the page that captures the signature. I'm on a computer, but that would actually have the signature. And there's the discount because I had the 10% off there. And then the terms and conditions show up. And like I said, this created a dispatch ticket that's inside of the system. It just needs to be passed out. All right. And then after this, it's just going to kick me back to, I can email this off or I can hit exit. And it brings me back to the property. And like I was saying, every time you sell these repairs through QuickBid or through the budget matrix, a dispatch gets created. Here's that same dispatch. Zoom in a little bit for you. And anytime we have a contract dispatch or we dispatch out repairs, it looks a little bit different because it's got the repair items on it. So we're literally taking these repairs off of the inspection report, we're pushing it over to service, and it's going to get placed into the history once these get completed. And the nice part is the before pictures are already filled out. So these are the befores. Whoever does the work, they're going to see in their app the location, the description, and the before photo. So they have everything that they need in order to do the repair. The other piece that I want to mention here is that there's the ability to quick attach files that are stored on the property. So if you have the RTM agreement and it's important to share that with the technician, you can do a quick attach right from the property. And if I go back to that other agreement, I'll show you what it looks like. Capital Park Plaza, this is a completed RTM, it's resolved. I can come into it. It's just like a normal dispatch. We still capture the time, RTM notes, tech notes. Tech notes come from the technician. And if I wanted to, I could have attached this RTM agreement, which makes it so the tech can open it up and see any information on that agreement. They can actually see the agreement. Okay, anytime you upload anything, it does kind of hide behind this orange arrow. But there's the agreement. The other nice part about attaching files is it can be included within the invoice as you send that out to your customer. But if I come down here, we're seeing the before photos, after, and then if I go to the client invoice, it's treated just like a contract invoice. All right, so how you want to word this might change. So if you edit this, you'll see that we opened it up so you can put whatever description you want in there. If you wanted to do, PM visit, you can call it what you want to, and put some notes. See attached inspection report for recommended repair options. Because really, when you send this out and you have include the inspection report checked, all dispatches have that, but it's going to pull the last generated inspection report. So if you wanted to change it, or if you wanted to make your inspection a proposal inspection, you can go back to the property, make your changes, put your pricing in, spend a little bit more time on it. And what I mean by that is it's going to pull the last generated report that's available through your notes tab. So if this report doesn't look acceptable, then you got to edit it before you send that off. And not only do you got to edit it, but you got to regenerate it too. All right, so the way that this works is we'll go back to that dispatch and I'll send the invoice. We'll confirm it, save it, and then we'll come down and hit send client invoice with the include inspection report box checked. So that piece is important. If you want to include any attached files, you'll have to select this too, which maybe it's not a bad idea to include the RTM agreement itself. If you include any of this stuff, it does take longer to generate because the system will consolidate into one PDF, which when you send it off to your customer, it's in a link. They click the link and they're able to see that PDF. So this is what it looks like. I have my invoice, my line item, my notes. It's $250 a visit. And this is what they're paying for. I mean, really, they're getting great documentation on the maintenance items that you're doing. Here's the dedicated service agreement that we signed them up with. And here's the inspection report. And if you really do it good, you'll conclude with the repair options at the end, which I didn't do. So you could flip this thing into proposal mode on the property. And you can also, I know there was a lump sum question, you can also turn the property into lump sum mode, which always removes the line items from, or the line item costs from the reports. But if you do lump sum, bear in mind, you got to turn off the budget matrix because the budget matrix will still have those line item costs. Okay, so you would just save that and then be sure to regenerate it too so that way you have it. And something that I think is good to mention, and I don't know if everyone knows this, but if I go to my building that I was at, property, yeah, okay, cool. So if I go to this building, some of these options over here change the layout of the client portal. And that's why we don't have it set by default to be any different way. It's always set to be the budget matrix, and it's never set into lump sum mode by default. If you change it into proposal, then you'll see there's an additional tab within your client portal that really allows for your customers to go there to purchase repairs from you, where they can sign off on it even. Electronic signature is captured. This roof repairs tab only shows up if the property is in proposal mode. If you wish to have it be in proposal mode first before you do the inspection, as you schedule the inspection, there's an option, budget versus proposal. So I think everyone has seen that. If you schedule an inspection ahead of time, there's an option, if you do inspection, to choose between budget or proposal. That's why we have this in there. If you know you're going out to a single section building, might as well do proposal, because it's going to conclude with a signature page for them to sign off on doing the repairs. Okay, and this roof repairs tab is good for you to create repair proposals, and it's also good for your customer to come in to submit a PO to you. So you can literally just check off check boxes next to each repair. And then at the bottom, it's going to say, I agree to the terms and conditions, or send me a blank proposal so I can give it to my boss. And that's going to be generated and stored within the property as well. Okay, so a couple questions. Is RTM an additional module? Our admin has never heard of it, and we don't have the icon. This might be an after webinar question. It might be, we'll have to reach out, because it's not included in every one of your packages, but it depends on what you do have. So I would say give us a call or talk to Ryan or Jake. They'll definitely take care of you. And we want to make sure it's even a good fit too, if you don't have this tool, that it does fit within the way you guys do things. What if your agreement is set up on a time and material basis? Then I would still run it the same way. I mean, it's still captured inside of the system. Like I said in the beginning, we track time and material on every dispatch regardless of the invoice type. So on the dispatch ticket, you can show travel and labor items, and you can change the way that you bill it. So if I come back here, you're not going to show your customer it's $250 up front because it's time material. So you'd come down, and if you switch into edit mode, you can show travel labor items and see what you're going to bill your customer, and then you can enter it, the value in here for that lump sum. But I would try and keep it to the RTM invoice type. I mean, you can do it as you have to do it as RTM type, because the inspection only shows up within this type. And also, keeping it to RTM type allows you to do the filtering on the dispatch board and pull only your RTMs and run different reports based on that as well. And having these different invoice types, bear in mind, you're doing billable work, you're doing non-billable work, you're doing RTMs. Does this relationship ever pay off? Well, this isn't really accurate, but yours should be. This service tab is going to show you something called service profitability, which is really cool because it's supposed to take the hours absorbed within each of these dispatches, show you your cost, and then also show you what you billed, so you can see if a relationship is making sense. This works two ways. If you have gross margin and you use it and you make sure that your costs are entered into the system correctly, then this will show you pretty close if this relationship is profiting and what your margin is. That's what this is supposed to be. If you don't have gross margin, then we use some simple math where we still capture your hours, but in order to get your cost, you have to enter in your average cost per hour, which I know it's kind of hard to get to at times, but you can ballpark it in and come up with an average amount that it costs. Why doesn't the client contact carry over from dispatch into the report? I'm not sure if you're saying when you dispatch out a ticket. I think when you dispatch out and you choose this guy, it doesn't carry over. That totally should. Site contact, and that should show up in the app too. So I would check, because that, sometimes I do it and there's no phone number in there and it doesn't show up, but yeah, that should show as long as Steve's got a phone number in there. So I would just look at that. I missed how to find the RTM when I need to invoice. Will it show on the dispatch tab? I missed how to find the RTM when I need to invoice. Will it still show on the dispatch tab? I think what you're saying is, will it still show up on the dispatch board? It sure will. And it follows the normal order too. So most recent typically shows up on top, as long as you're not filtering yours a different way, or you're ascending your, because these top headers are sorting by ascending or descending. So my dispatches always come in on the top, and I think yours do too, as long as you don't change the order. So yeah, so you can see them right from this view, and you can even filter out by invoice type of RTM too if you need. So you can see all of your RTMs within here. Okay. So yes, if you have any other questions, do jot them in. And hopefully this was beneficial. And the intent was to show you guys and really to help put systems in place to track these agreements, whatever you call them, however you do them, where the whole intent is that you have a great way to stay connected with your client, keep them off the street, and to generate some revenue from those agreements. So delivery is really important. So I would take some time and figure out how you deliver these to your customers. Everyone has their different ways in which they do it. Everyone has their different models that works for them. So if I can help in any way, feel free to reach out to me. I think my next webinar is going to be getting a lot of requests for time card. So if anyone wants to see anything different, do shoot me over some notes, and that would be, yeah. So if anyone needs anything, let me know. And I am taking suggestions for different webinars. So if you'd like to see something specific, do please let me know. But guys, thanks for listening to me ramble on for an hour. And if you have anything that you need, reach out.